This recipe is great because it's so versatile. It could be savory or sweet. It can be for kids. Conservatives and liberals both love them. And it's not just for breakfast. You could bring this to any holiday or potluck. Is it a dessert? Is it an appetizer? You decide. But today we're going to make like a desserty, kid-friendly breakfast one with a blueberry and cream cheese filling. So let's make some kolaches. Kolaches have a special place in my heart because I'm from North Texas, and in your 20s, if you live where I live, the thing to do is go down to Austin for a weekend, and then exactly halfway home from Austin, in the city of West Texas, there's a place called the Check Stop, and it's wall-to-wall kolaches, and there's nothing better after a long weekend than a bunch of really yummy, greasy food. And the other reason I love them, and this is maybe my favorite thing in the food world, is when we take something that is simple and lovely and steeped in tradition, and then Americans get a hold of it and we just bastardize the shit out of it, and we fill it with cheese and a bunch of meat and increase the size. I mean, originally these were little pieces of shortbread with some apricot jam in the middle of them, and now we put meat and icing and all sorts of, I mean, they put a hot dog in the middle of it, for Christ's sake. Like, what's more American than that? So for these beautiful monstrosities we're going to start with doing three things kind of all at the same time. We're going to melt the butter, steam the milk, and bloom the yeast. And we're going to do it in a way to where they all are ready at the same time and kind of at the same temperature. So you can microwave your butter if you want. I like to do mine kind of low and slow. I actually just put it on the exhaust vent of my oven. It works pretty well. And then you want to do the milk on medium heat until it gets a little film on the top of it and it starts to steam. Way before it starts to boil, you want to take it off and let it cool for 15 minutes. And when that 15 minutes has 5 minutes left, you want to take the butter out of the microwave or off the heat, and you want to start blooming the yeast. So for our yeast, we want water that's hot but under 115 degrees. If any of these get over 115, it could kill the yeast. And then once you've done all those steps, you can go ahead and start your dough with 2/3 of a cup of sugar, 1 large egg, and you can go ahead and add all 4 of these ingredients before you stir it. I don't know why I'm stirring it a little bit each time, but then we'll do 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and then we'll throw in our half stick of butter. Go ahead and stir this up, and you're going to want to mix this really good because once we add the flour, you're not really going to be able to mix it. Once that's all mixed together, go ahead and stir in your yeast. And then we'll add our steamed milk. And we'll give that one final stir, and then we'll start adding our flour. And we're going to add our flour a little bit at a time. We're doing 550 grams of flour, and that's about 4 1/4 cup. But one optional thing that I recommend is you can replace up to 1/4 of the flour with cake flour. So I'm actually doing 450 grams of all-purpose flour and 100 grams of cake flour. It just makes it a little less like bread and a little bit more like a pastry. And I'm sure you can do it if you're scooping it out with measuring cups instead of weighing it, but you're on your own. You and Google can figure that out. And we'll just continue to add a little bit of flour at a time. And if you're a savage, you can mix this by hand straight away, I guess. But what I'm going to do is just mix it with a wooden spoon as I add it until it comes together enough to at least be a little bit less ridiculous. And I said this earlier, but you really don't want to mix it more than you have to. You don't want to knead it at all. You just want to get it to where there's no bits of dry flour. You're not trying to make an actual dough ball. You're just trying to make kind of a shaggy, weird blob. And because of that, it's going to be super hard to work with no matter what. So just do your best. However you can, just get your blob into an oiled bowl. I'm going to go ahead and dirty up 2 bowls here just because it's easier. But get it in there, wrap it up with plastic wrap or put a towel over it, and let it sit on the counter for about 90 minutes or until it's doubled in size. All right, so as you can see, my blob here has roughly doubled in size or somewhere thereabouts. You know, when it's not a nice round dough ball, it's harder to tell, but you really just want it to be nice and fluffy. And the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to press all that fluffiness out of the dough. We're going to punch it down, degas it. And the reason that we're doing that is with this dough, we basically want to do the opposite of everything that you would do to get a nice fluffy loaf of bread. So for like a nice big round loaf of bread, you would want big air pockets, you would want a strong gluten structure. For this, we actually want it to be kind of weak and crumbly so it'll be nice and soft. So once we're done punching it down, the next thing we're going to do is throw it in the fridge for at least 4 hours, or ideally you would just put it in there overnight, and then about 2 hours before you're ready to serve breakfast, we'll start the last proof. All right, here we are. It's the next morning, and before we take our dough out of the fridge, we're going to do our fillings. We'll start with the blueberries, and then while that's cooling down, we'll do the cream cheese. But before we do anything, and I mean anything for the day, before you go pee or let the dogs out, as soon as you wake up, take the cream cheese out of the fridge. That way it's as easy to work with as possible.
All right, so for the blueberry filling, we're going to do 1 cup of blueberries, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of water, and about 3/4 of a teaspoon of cornstarch. And we're going to cook this on a medium heat, but if it starts to go crazy and burn your pan, you can move it down a little bit. All you really want is for the blueberries to pop and some of the juice to come out, because that's what's going to mix with the cornstarch and actually make the filling. So this whole thing will take about 5 minutes, but just think that you want it to be a little bit runnier than your finished product because it's going to thicken up as it cools down.
And for the cream cheese part, we're going to whip together 8 ounces of softened cream cheese, half a cup granulated sugar, half a teaspoon vanilla extract, whoops-a-daisy, and then 1 egg yolk. And some people do the shell-to-shell method. I do the get your hands all gross method. Nice. Get this egg yolk out of there. Boy, it really wants to stay in its little embryo. There we go. And we just want to whisk this until it's nice and fluffy. Now I've pushed both of my filling things to the side. I got my dough fresh out of the fridge, and I'm going to start weighing these out into little balls at about 75 grams each. Now this dough is really sticky, so you don't need to when you're weighing them out, but as soon as you start to shape your balls, you want to get your hands all greasy.
So like I said, we're going to weigh these out into about 75-gram balls, but if you don't have a scale, that's no problem. You can just do them about golf ball size, and then just keep in mind that you're going to get about 15 out of this amount of dough. And as you can see, I'm still not kneading them. I'm really just smushing them together and rolling them around until they're a little bit smooth.
Then we'll spray down our pan. And this next part is kind of optional. If you just want them to be a little bit more rustic looking, you can actually just throw them directly on the pan in your balled up little wads and fill them from there. But
I want mine to be a little more round and smooth, so I'm going to shape them just a little bit. So you see I kind of flatten it out, and then I fold one side over on itself a few times until it forms a ball. And then the folded side's going to be the bottom, so I flip it over and then I pinch that just to seal it, and that's one dough ball. Once I do the old flatten fold pinch to all of these, we're going to scoot them over and start our fillings. So we're going to plop the blueberries in a bowl here, and you can see they get a lot more jello-y as they cool down. So then we'll go ahead and spread that out because we're going to drop the cream cheese mixture right in the middle of it. And of course you could just keep them separate and just make a little bed of cream cheese and put the blueberry filling in the middle of that. But I thought it'd be easier just to try and get a little bit of each in each scoop. But whatever you do, don't flip your spatula over and start trying to make designs in the blueberries. I was trying to do like a cool tie-dye kind of thing, but it didn't really work out. Well, I mean, it kind of did. You decide. Now we're going to start filling our danishes, and please don't think that you can just make a little indentation with your thumb and then the weight of the filling will cause the dough to rise up around it. It's not going to work. You need to actually make a canoe out of these things, okay? So make a full-on bowl out of the dough and then add a heaping tablespoon of filling, like a tablespoon and a half to each one. And if you can't fit that much, you need to make a bigger canoe. Once they're all filled up, you're going to gently place a greased plastic wrap over the top of them so they can rise for one final hour, at which point you're going to check on them and go ahead and preheat the oven to 375. And after an hour, I can see that some of my canoes are starting to rise like dinner rolls instead of fluffy cream cheese vessels, so I'm going to have to stick my fingers underneath the filling and stretch them back out into bowls. Then, optionally, you can egg wash all of them with one egg mixed with a splash of water. Then it's into the oven they go for 30 minutes or until they are perfect and golden brown.
And I told you this recipe was versatile, so let me show you how I make a couple of the savory items.
To make the savory ones, I take one of those same dough balls and flip it upside down and flatten it out with my palm. And the same as the other ones, you want to get your hands nice and greasy with some oil or cooking spray or something. And then flatten it out, but not in a complete circle, kind of like a cross or a T, but like a real blobby T. If you just make it look like a maxi pad, you're going to be fine. And then I put my fillings. For these ones, I'm doing some sausage and cheddar, but you can put anything you want in there. And then I fold it over and then make sure that the side that's on top really sticks to the other side. And then for the pigs in a blanket, it's even easier. You really just make an oval, put the dog in there, and then the only thing is you want to make sure that when you wrap it around, you put it seam side down. And for these, you're going to want to use a smaller dough ball, like 40 to 50 grams should be perfect. All right, guys, back to our featured kolache. I left it in the oven right at 30 minutes, so let's see how we did. Oh, yeah, we did it. We did it, guys. It only took us about 13 hours, but we did it. We made breakfast. All right.
Now, of course, sweethearts, there's only one thing left to do. Let's try it. Super soft. The right bread to filling ratio. Give these savory ones a try. Green sauce never hurt anybody. They're pretty fucking good. Well, there you have it, folks. Whether it's brunch for your family or dessert for a gathering, be a big fat show off and bring these things. Make them your own. Let me know in the comments what crazy fillings you put inside of them. And as always, please like the video. Like me, someone, for the love of God. Subscribe, all that good stuff. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.